Handyman Saito, who was transported to another world, located a hidden section of the Great Dungeon and explores it with his party. The armored warrior Raelza, the forgetful mage Morlock, and the magical fairy Lafanpan. They discover a huge cavern filled with items from Saito's world but are attacked by a powerful ninja named Kisurugi, as well as his fairy companion Primasse. They manage to fend him off with the help of the dwarf Gibungle, who, to everyone's surprise, is Morlock's apprentice. He tells Morlock it has been 20 years that he's been searching for the old wizard. While everyone looks on in surprise, he has no idea what the dwarf is talking about. Gibungle explains that Morlock was a renowned magician from a far eastern land who left on a journey 20 years prior in search of some forbidden magic, but never returned. Just as he tells the party Morlock's true name, he is hit with a kunai from Kisurugi. The party prepare themselves to face the ninja, who to their shock emerges from the shadows flanked by two greater demons. Kisurugi had long worked as an assassin, killing many targets over the course of his brutal career. However, one day he was tasked with assassinating a 400-year-old witch, Raelza. He attempts to execute his target only to be sent to the demon realm after he touches the witch's shadow. Kisurugi manages to claw his way out of there, and in the process of his escape he gains two great demon subordinates, Telfin and Ableth. He locates the witch once more, but instead of killing her, kisses her, revealing that he'd fallen in love with her beauty. Some time after their encounter, he tracks down her home, a small dilapidated building in the middle of nowhere, to express his feelings to her. But there he discovers Raelza in an extremely dire condition. Ravelza's close friend, the black crystal fairy Primasse, tells Kisurugi that the witch had been cursed by a demon. The curse prevented her from aging, and the only way to break the curse was for her to fall in love, at which point all the aging that the curse had been holding back would catch up to Raelza, leaving her extremely aged and on the brink of death. To Kisurugi's immense distress, he realizes the cause of Ravelza's current state was him, the man she fell in love with. Observing his genuine pain, Primasse reveals that there's still one method for saving Raelza: the magic of the mage who can control time, who is set to reside in the Great Labyrinth. For the sake of his beloved, Kisurugi enters the dungeon and begins ambushing all high-level parties in order to monopolize the prize. Saitō and Kisurugi's parties clash, and despite Saitō helping Morlock use higher-tier magic, they're pushed back, with Saitō nearly dying. But to their rescue come the Laelza Guiver party, the Flanriel Ninja party, and a party made up of the kingdom's new haphazardly selected hero, Canes, the magician Reishi, and priest Monpui. With their combined strength, they push Kisurugi's side to the brink of defeat. In an act of desperation, Primasse prepares to sacrifice the magic power stored in her wings to summon a deadly 8-tiered dark spirit. Kisurugi urges her to stop, and can't bring himself to help her tear the wings off. But the fairy, desperate to help her savior and only friend Raelza, tears them off herself. The dark spirit emerges in the form of a giant pillar engulfing Kisurugi's party within its body and begins attacking everyone, putting them on the back foot despite their superior numbers. As they all desperately hold on to survive, Saitō suddenly tells Morlock that they must use the spell which stops time. Morlock is shocked by Saito's knowledge of the spell. The handyman explains that he discovered spells to control space and time in a locked book of magic that Morlock owned, and that ever since this discovery, he knew that Morlock was the one who had summoned him to this world. Before he lost his memory, Morlock, or rather Chrome, as he was known back then, was a genius magician who lived a modest life with his wife and loving young daughter. While he doted on his little girl, he spent most of his days in a lab developing great magic, so his work would be recognized by the most prominent wizards in the land, and he would be given title of the Great Mage. When his family asked him to spend time with them, he would insist he needed to work so that once he became a great mage, he could buy them a better house and help them live happier lives. One night, nearly on the verge of a great breakthrough, he comes home from his lab to grab some of his research material. His wife pleads for him to stay because their daughter had been suffering from a nasty fever for many nights. Chrome brushes her off, telling her he'd had a word with both the temple and the medical clinic and that her condition wasn't so serious. He leaves, promising to come home as early as he can the next day. Some time passes and he completes his research, finally achieving the title of the Great Mage. Running with joy, he comes home to share the good news with his family, only to find his wife sitting beside the lifeless body of their daughter. She reveals that the fever got worse the previous night, and although she took her to the medical clinic, no one had been there that late. Chrome desperately asks his wife about taking the body to church so they could cast revival magic on her, but is told that he had invested all their savings into his lab, so they no longer had any money to pay the church. His wife leaves him shortly afterward, and Chrome, in both anger and depression, begins tearing his home apart. Suddenly, his eyes fall upon a book that speaks of magic that can manipulate time. Magic wielded by a mysterious mage within the Great Labyrinth of the Northern Kingdom. Chrome travels to this distant kingdom and enters the Great Labyrinth, where he discovers a sealed section of the dungeon hidden behind magical camouflage. Unsealing the magic, he moves inward until he reaches a cavern filled with mysterious artifacts, as well as some pages detailing the existence of magic that can bring time to a standstill and even contact another world. Despite this amazing discovery, to his great frustration, he's unable to find any magic that would allow him to travel through time into the past. Suddenly, Chrome senses a powerful presence standing behind him. He sees a short figure cloaked in a white robe and correctly surmises he's the person he'd been searching for. Chrome requests that the mage teach him the magic that can turn back time, and the mage agrees, on the condition that Chrome can defeat him in battle. The two fight, and while Chrome manages to provide a challenge to the mage, he ultimately loses. The mage states he's journeying to another world, but in honor of the great battle that he had just fought, he grants Chrome a small portion of his wish. To ease his suffering, the mage erases Chrome's memory, making him forget the life he lived, including that of his daughter, and thus expunging the pain of her death. Chrome emerges dazed from within the dungeon, with only his magical knowledge intact, and a necklace that his forgotten daughter had made for him. With no knowledge of his actual name, Chrome misreads the lettering on the necklace and mistakenly decides that his name must be Morlock. The discovery that Saitō had been brought to this world by Morlock is a great shock to the party, but given their desperate situation, they have no time to discuss the matter. With both Gibungle's urging and Saito's gentle encouragement, Morlock agrees to cast the spell called A Moment of Solitude, allowing him to stop time for everyone but himself for around 100 seconds. The rest of the team divide the dark spirit's attention, and Morlock casts the spell with Saito's help. With the monster now locked in place, Morlock is able to destroy the spirit using some of his powerful magic. Just as the monster is on the verge of destruction, Morlock is inundated with memories of the people trapped inside it. He discovers the reason why Kisurugi and his party acted the way they did. To prevent their total destruction, Morlock casts magic cancellation and reduces the power of his attack, so that the spirit is destroyed, but Kisurugi's party remains unharmed. These abrupt changes cause a magical backlash, however, and Morlock's hand is ripped off in the process. The passage of time resumes, and Saito's party rushes over to Morlock to reattach his hand with healing magic. Before they do, Morlock asks Lafanpan to first reattach Primasse's wings. While the rest are confused by this, he relays their memories to the party, explaining the reasons behind their actions. Lafa and Gwiver help heal Primasse's wings, while Kisurugi requests the burden of facing the consequences of their actions be laid on him, and that the demons and Primasse be left alone. He accepts the fact that he'll probably be hanged, but only as long as the rest are set free. Gibungle informs Kisurugi that Morlock may be able to help him save Raelza, and Kisurugi desperately looks over to Morlock when, to everyone's shock, he's suddenly attacked by magically controlled swords. The culprits behind the attack are none other than the Demon Lord, again disguised as a holy knight, as well as the minister. As the attack descends upon Kisurugi, Ableth jumps in the way, saving his friend when Lafanpan provokes the Demon King's anger, who in his fury reveals his true nature. To everyone's surprise, Lafanpan turns out to be the Demon King's nephew. Since the only people present who were thought to have been assassinated by Kisurugi's party were the two members of King Madaraka's party, Saitō eases tensions by concluding that as long as they forgive Kisurugi, he needs not to be hanged. The group discusses Raelza's predicament, and Kisurugi asks Morlock if he has any way to help the witch. To his dismay, Morlock tells him that he's not capable of that sort of time magic, and that the only one who could have helped him has already left to explore another world. Hearing of the witch's curse, the minister reveals that the king possesses powerful magic enough to rejuvenate her, but the life energy of someone close to her must be used to power the spell. Despite both Primasse and the Demon King's objections, Kisurugi volunteers to give up his life for her. He asks the group to allow him to make the sacrifice as penance for his crimes. He receives permission from everyone, and the two greater demons are forcibly sent back to the demon realm to prevent them from interfering with his wishes. The minister thus uses a teleportation spell to transfer Kisurugi, Primasse, the Demon King, and himself back to King Madaraka's castle. Both the king and Kisurugi go to the witch's home where, using a magical blade called the Blood Sword, the king tears off Kisurugi's limbs. Now only using half of his limbs as well as Primasse's wings, the king manages to gather enough life to bring back Raelza's youth. However, when the witch wakes up, she unfortunately fails to recognize the assassin, for the entire ordeal had caused her to lose her memories. Satisfied with the result, Kisurugi heads off. As he walks away, Primasse scolds him for being a coward, to which his answer is that he simply doesn't deserve to be happy. Suddenly, off in the distance, he hears two thugs harassing the witch. Seeing that Raelza appears unable to defend herself, he fends them both off. To force an interaction between the two, Primasse asks Raelza to reward them with sweets, a request she happily agrees to. As the trio head back in, Primasse looks over her shoulder and smiles as the two thugs hiding behind an outcropping are revealed to be Lafanpan and Ableth in disguise. Meanwhile, back in the Great Labyrinth, everyone grabs a handful of the rare items from Earth found within the large cavern. They bring them up with them to the surface, where each item is promptly confiscated as it needs to be analyzed by the royal magician. Saitō expresses gratitude to everyone for their help, and everyone says their goodbyes before heading off with their respective party members. Later that night, Saitō and his party have dinner at an inn and discuss Morlock's summoning of the Handyman into this world. Morlock reveals he has regained some of his memory, and that the day Saitō was summoned, he remembered feeling an urgent need to find someone. He couldn't remember who he was searching for, so he used the spell and accidentally ended up bringing Saitō here. To Morlock's relief, Saitō chooses not to blame him, and instead offers his gratitude, since the spell summoned him while he was moments away from being hit by a truck. Lafa realizes that since Morlock summoned him here, he could just as easily send him back. This agitates Raelza, who first in anger, then in tears lists all the things Saitō has done for their party, and how important he is to them, before running off. Saitō runs after her and manages to catch up some distance outside town, where she asks him if he truly wants to go home. He explains that while there were some people he missed back home, being in the current world brings him greater joy. Here, he actually has people who both need and want him, which he didn't have back in the real world. While they are focused on each other, a poisonous armed serpent suddenly ambushes Raelza and bites her. Before Saitō has time to act, Raelza grabs the serpent and rips it in half, all the while confessing that she needs him more, far more than anyone else in this world, where his previous one will ever need him. The two stare at one another after this confession, when Saitō notices an injury her armor failed to protect her from, and provides her with some first aid and anti-venom. He smiles at her, confirming that he wishes to stay with the person who needs him most. Morlock and Lafa manage to catch up to the two, and Raelza asks Morlock if he can actually send Saitō back. Morlock tells him that it might be possible, but he could only send Saitō back at the exact place and time from where he had taken him, meaning he would immediately be hit by a truck if he did. Saitō smiles, saying it isn't an issue since he wasn't planning on going back, which makes Raelza blush. As they converse, the seemingly dead armed serpent unexpectedly gets up and attacks, biting Morlock in the shoulder. The group dispose of the serpent and bring Morlock back into town, having run out of antivenom to treat the toxin with. The next day, Morlock stays behind to rest while the others go back to the dungeon to work. Their expedition takes longer than normal without the old wizard present, and they arrive back in town 4 days later. They go to check on Morlock only to find nothing but an empty room. The inn's despondent proprietor emerges from behind them, informing them that Morlock had passed away 3 days ago.